Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar. I'm excited that you're here tonight, and I'm looking forward to us having an amazing time. My name is Christine Vihishima, the Programs Officer at Life Foundation, and today marks the very first edition of our Health Talks in 2026. However, this is our fifth Health Talks since we started the series. And tonight we are going to be treating a very interesting topic. Our topic tonight is career first, baby later. We are going to be looking at how that impacts our lifestyle, how that impacts our fertility journey, not just as women, but even as men. Our facilitator is going to be taking us through a general lifestyle check, especially as we live, in these modern times. And I am confident that tonight is going to be an exceptional time. I'm confident that you're going to have a very, very wonderful learning experience. I am looking forward to our questions. My eyes are going to be on the comments. And if you have any questions, please do well to drop them in the comment section so that our guest, our facilitator, can answer the questions. But before we get onto our topic for today, I'd like to say hello to those who are joining us tonight. I can see Yahaya, Omar, thank you for being here. I can see Mujiba. I can see Nurse Joy. I can see Hakima. I can see Hawa Abdul. Thank you so much for joining us. Please share this link with others who you believe will benefit from tonight's webinar. Share the link, invite people to join us. It's a free webinar, it's for your benefit, and it's going to be an amazing time. So we'll just give it 30 more seconds to 1 minute and then we'll begin. While you are still here, please do well to connect with us on our online platforms. You can find us at www.welllifefoundationg.com. You can find us on Instagram at welllife_foundation and on Facebook at welllife foundation. Do well to follow us, engage with us. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel and you're here right now, click on the subscribe button right away so that you don't miss out on our very interesting content that will help you on your health journey. All right. Are we ready for tonight's session? I will give you 1 minute. And what I want you to use that 1 minute to do is to take this link, put it on your status, and invite someone to join us. That's the exercise I want us to do. So take this link. I'm giving you 1 minute to take this link, put it on your WhatsApp status, put it on your Facebook, put it on your stories, put it where your fans are, where you have a lot of engagement, and tell them you have to join this webinar. Tell them this webinar is critical for your survival. This webinar is critical for your happiness. This webinar is critical for your fertility. I want you to join this webinar. So go right now, pick the link, just click share under your screen, pick the link and share this link right now, right away. We'll be back in 1 minute to kick off our webinar. Thank you for being here. All right. Welcome back to tonight's webinar. We actually took a little commercial break where I asked us to pick the link from this video. You can take a screenshot of what you see on your screen and share it on your status, share it on your post, on your feed, share it with the ones you love, and tell them that this webinar is not a webinar that you should miss. All right, so it is time for us to get into the gist of today. And to take us through tonight's webinar is our very own Executive Director, Dr. Yakub Ibrahim Sime. I'm going to be reading his brief bio and then I will be calling him on stage to join us. Dr. Yakub Ibrahim Sime is a renowned gynecologist and obstetric surgeon with over 2 decades of experience. As the founder and CEO of Wildlife Hospital and the executive director of Wildlife Foundation, Dr. Sime is dedicated to providing high quality healthcare services and improving the lives of patients in Nigeria. A fellow of the International Fertility Society and a member of the West African College of Surgeons, Obstetric and Gynecology, Dr. Sime is a skilled gynecological minimal access surgeon. Throughout his career, he has successfully managed thousands of cases and performed over 2,000 gynecological and obstetric surgeries, transforming the lives of countless individuals. Now, if you've been following our Health Talk series, you will know that Dr. Yakub is not a stranger on this platform. He has done well to address many medical issues through our health talks, and we are glad to be receiving him again tonight to talk to us on the topic of career first, baby later. And at this point, I will be bringing Dr. Yakub to join us on stage. You're very welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Christine, for having me once again. And I'm glad to be here. This is our second webinar for the year, right? And the fifth,
First webinar.
first
First
webinar for the
webinar.
year, and then the
Yes,
fifth
sir.
altogether.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so good to have you guys and welcome everybody on board.
Thank you, sir. So I'll be leaving you to the stage and I'll be sharing your slide so you can move on. Thank you, sir.
Thank you once again. Okay, thank you, Christine, once again, as I said. And I welcome everybody, as Christine has stated earlier. Wildlife Foundation is actually meant to offer healthcare services to everyone, and most importantly, to those who are underserved, that is, undeserved people across Nigeria. And one of the efforts in offering these services we believe is also offering, in addition to direct medical care, we want to offer preventive health care. And in this case, education or health education is one of the ways we believe we can prevent a host of issues. Once we have the right information, we believe that with right information, some diseases can be prevented. Those that may not be prevented may be treated appropriately, and so on and so forth to avoid unnecessary complications and sometimes unnecessary death. So today we're going to be talking about uh, an interesting part of our lives, which is the fact that, well, we tend to focus a lot more on things and concerning life and forgetting our biology. So we decided that, well, perhaps we should talk about this because in clinical practice, we see a lot of people coming in at the sunset of life to want to seek to achieve something that biologically may not be possible at that time. And the reason is because they tend to forget that biology has its own time that clicks every day, ticks every day while you pursue whatever it is you pursue in life. So today we're going to be talking about these issues. But before we come to career itself and the effects on our lives generally, I'm going to talk about lifestyle and health generally in the first few slides, and then we'll come back to the main issue of the day. So we're going to be looking at certain definitions, which of course we may be familiar with. What is lifestyle in itself? Lifestyle typically is an individual's way of life. That is the things you commonly do, what you eat, what you drink, whether you are active, whether you are not active, if you smoke, drinking. Basically, whatever it is that are your habits in life is what defines your lifestyle. When we get to some point along the line, we're going to see how this is important in our predisposition to certain disease condition as we go along. So we will. So what is health? Health is a state of complete physical and mental social well-being, and not just the absence of disease. This we need to take note of this keyword: physical health, mental health. Sorry, just a minute. So we have physical health, we have mental health, social well-being, as well as, but not just the absence of disease. In this physical health, there's also an aspect of health which may be reproductive health and a host of other things that we're going to talk about. So today we're going to look at what our lifestyles, or how our lifestyle eventually affect our health generally, and which we look at things like we said physical health is a state of physical fitness, mental health is emotional and psychological well-being of a person, which means things like whether or not you're happy, you're sad, anger, self-control, and all of those things. And social health is your ability or capacity to meaningfully relate with other people, in life. Now, we also need to consider certain things that affect our health generally. That is because in health issues, there are some factors that we may not be able to modify, and there are certain factors that we may be able to modify. Now, why this is important will become very obvious when we talk about whether or not, or when we delay certain biological functions because we pursue some career or educational goals. So, what are the factors that generally affect our health? The first is our genetic makeup. Now, this is more or less like what we inherit from parents. Uh, and this is the main thing that determines what your disease predisposition or capacity to fight or not to fight diseases are. So, but sadly, this can never be changed or modified, because once you are born with certain genetic marks or genetic composition, nobody can change that. And those genes you have in you may determine whether or not you develop certain disease conditions in life. For instance, some of us have heard about sickle cell disease, we've heard about asthma, and all of those things. Some of these things are directly inherited from parents, and there's nothing so far medical science can do to change that. Then we have another condition or set of conditions we call congenital abnormalities. Congenital abnormalities are slightly different from genetic inheritance, in the sense that these abnormalities are situations or abnormal situations that occur while we are in our mother's wombs, in our formative years, so to say, commonly between the months of 2 to 3 months while you are in your mother's womb. If certain acts, usually most of the organs of the body by third month of pregnancy are completely formed. Now, this process, it's very, very delicate, to the extent that sometimes if the mother, the pregnant woman, is exposed to some drugs or some toxins or sometimes even food items that may, for instance, or social food items like alcohol, cigarette smoking, and all of that, they may interfere with the formation of body organs to the extent that those organs either do not completely form, or they form in manners that they may not function well. And that's a group of conditions we call congenital abnormalities. This eventually will affect the state of your health. Then environment. Environmental factors are, of course, your environment is where you spend most of your lifetime. And here we have things like climate, air pollution, tropical or polar areas, and then whatever organisms that may be present in that environment will certainly affect your health. For instance, we have certain parts of the world where malaria is, I mean, mosquitoes are present, and therefore malaria is present. Where we don't have malaria, mosquitoes in any environment, you are not definitely going to have malaria. So you can see that if you are in an environment where you don't have mosquitoes, you are not likely to have malaria, and so forth and so on. So there are so many disease conditions that are present in only in some specific environment that are not also available. I mean, some that are not present in others. So essentially, your environment, to a very large extent, can predispose you to some diseases, uh, and vice versa. Now, social environment, this environment also includes your social environment, that is the people you interact with in your life. Now, the physical environment here, of course, your home, your schools, workplace, and all of these things, they all determine your health to a very large extent. Now, now, let's go directly to the main thing of the day: modern lifestyle and our health. How does we look at the way we live now and how it affects our health? Now, in the next few slides, I'll just generally talk about the things we do and how they affect our general health. Then I'll come down to our reproductive health. That's where our career pursuits come in to affect our health. Generally, of course, we have in present times, these are the things we do. Electronics and the internet, how do these things affect our health? Of course, we're all exposed to computers, tablets, cell phones, etc. Now, the problem here is that constant exposures to these things also expose us to blue rays. Their screens emit blue rays, and the reason they emit blue rays is actually but blue rays have a way of preventing us from sleep because they prevent the formation of a substance called melatonin, which is actually a biological sleep hormone. So the longer you stay on your screens, in any form the screens appear or come, the more likely you develop poor sleep. And of course, where you have poor sleep over time, your memory becomes uh, disorganized. And eventually, or with poor sleep, you also have what we call oxidative stress, and then you develop stress related diseases. I know that most of us these days have problems sleeping. It may not be unconnected with the fact that we spend hours on screens. So let's be aware of that. And in fact, we see that sometimes those who have these problems, when you tell them to put off their phones, TV sets, computers, and read a book, they're able to sleep because a book does not emit blue rays. So for anyone who is suffering from this, please take note of your screen time. You might just be exposing yourself too much to blue rays. Sedentary lifestyle, of course, as a result of these same problems, we spend most of our time on phones, internet, and the rest of them. And then we see a lot of people now becoming obese, getting diabetes, and then, of course, hypertension. This is as a result of the modern lifestyle. This is commoner in urban environments where people hardly go out. There are people who probably don't leave their homes for weeks because they work from home and everything, practically everything they need can be ordered online, and they just sit in one place and they live their life. But ultimately, they have this risk. Then information overload, of course, a lot of people expose themselves to a lot of information online without knowing that they're actually consuming things that result into stress. So everybody should know how much information and what type of information you can take. Otherwise, you may also be exposing yourself to stressful situations as a result of consuming a lot of information from the internet. Then overdependence on AI features. These days, people hardly want to do any mental cognitive functions because anything, practically everything you need or you ask the AI or Google or ChatGPT and the rest of them, you have the answers. Now, the resulting effect on human beings on brain is this: the fact that your brain shrinks over time when you do not engage it properly. So, brain is just like any other human tissue. The less you engage the tissues, the more the weaker the tissues get, like your muscles. When you don't use your muscles over time, they tend to reduce in mass and strength. And that is why you see that people who are, for whatever reasons, paralyzed, especially in the lower limbs, the legs, you see that as they sit and they are bound in a wheelchair, they sit longer. The longer they sit, the more likely the legs get thinner. The same thing happens with the brain. When you don't use your brain, over time it shrinks and your cognitive ability also drops. Over time, you see your life performance and everything else drops. So we need to be aware of this as well. Internet, entertainment, cheap dopamine. Of course, this is why a lot of people get addicted to being online because whatever you see, in most cases, people stay getting entertained. And entertainment, whatever you are doing online, once you are entertained, you get cheap dopamine that keeps you happy. Over time, you get dependent on those things. Over time, you get addiction to a point that you wake up in the morning without your phone, you can't do anything. What you don't know is that your brain is actually emitting or releasing dopamine every time and anytime you are online, to a point that there's almost this reflex uh, uh, force. You get almost irresistibly connected to your phone because your brain is dependent on the cheap dopamine you get online. So at the end of the day, what the price you pay is the fact that you have a cognitive decline, low self-esteem, and of course we have issues with life generally. Now let's go to career pursuits. Now, why this is important again is because we have a lot of people who face practically every other thing in life, but they forget their biology. Now, education and career pursuits in modern times almost always cause postponement of certain biological activities until when we are settled. That is almost always what people believe. People believe that, well, whatever it is you want to do, you have to face certain things first, and then when you achieve that, then when you're ready, you go to the next. But one thing we forget is the fact that the biology, human biology, and everything that has to do with human bodily function is largely dependent on our age. And age is very critical matter in practically all biological functions, as the biological clock never stops clicking. So with age, most of our functions wane and some diseases inevitably pop up. Now, the ones we're going to be talking about will be reproductive function as related to age. Now, reproductive function in this case, we're talking about, well, actually, it's for both men and women. There's a myth that says that people believe that, well, once you are not sexually exposed, whether a man or a woman, you know whenever you are ready to have children, you can have, because it is assumed that you may not develop any problems related to your reproductive function. But that is why I actually highlighted this in capital letters. Let's always remember this: virginity does not guarantee fertility. So, in whatever we do, we should remember that age is an important factor in our fertility potentials and life. Now, as I said earlier, this affects both females and male, but of course, females are affected more, and that is because for females there's an optimal reproductive age which is between the ages of 18 and 24. After this age, the reproductive function of a woman declines rapidly. In fact, usually the reproductive capacity of the woman declines a little bit slowly between the ages of 25 and 35 years. After 35, there is a rapid decline up until 42 years. After 42, it's an express decline up until when the woman gets into menopause. So with increasing age, many factors may develop that impair fertility. Now we need to remember these things. The factors that may develop whether or not you're sexually active are these things. They do not respect the fact that you're sexually active or not. Endometriosis developed and gets worse with age, and this is particularly in women, and it could adversely affect your fertility. Uterine fibroids develop with age, and in particular, we see fibroids developing in women above the ages of 25 who have never carried babies in their wombs. I want to emphasize that uterine fibroids hardly occur in women who are very reproductive, who have had children, especially earlier enough. But once a child or once a woman does not carry babies in her womb from the age of 25 and upwards, then you see that there's a tendency to develop uterine fibroids. And once fibroids begin to develop, then you know that there's no guarantee that they may not affect your fertility potential with time. So it doesn't matter whether you are sexually active or not. In fact, in this case, unfortunately, those who are sexually active to the extent that they get pregnant, even irrespective of how the pregnancy ends, whether it is an abortion or whether they deliver, as long as the uterus is engaged, most at times those ladies do not develop fibroids. So you can see that in this case, those who are virgins are more likely to develop uterine fibroids because the uterus is laying fallow. Adenomyosis is another condition that can occur while you grow older, irrespective of sexual activity. Pelvic infections, well, amongst the things that perhaps sexual activity or exposure can predispose you to is pelvic infections. These are most commonly sexually transmitted infections for those who are sexually active. And what they do in the long term is they can predispose to tubal blockage or some adhesions in the pelvic area that can interfere or compromise fertility potentials in a woman. Now, the other thing we need to remember as a result of age while we pursue career or education is the fact that as we grow older, for women, fewer and older eggs, we are going to have fewer and older eggs in our ovaries. Now, this a lot of times people are not aware of the fact that when I say it in clinics, I see women getting surprised. Women do not make new eggs in their lifetime. At any particular age you find a woman or a lady, the eggs she has at that time were or will be the eggs she was born with at the time of birth. So what that means is that every egg a woman has are eggs or is an egg that she was born with. So it therefore means that as we grow older, the eggs also grow older with us. Now, for those who menstruate, from the age you start menstruating, however, the eggs are getting diminished in numbers to the extent that generally we say you may have between 2 to 3 million eggs you're born with. By the time you're 13 or 14 or 12, when your menses start, you're probably going to have about 300,000 left. And these are the ones that will take you through your reproductive age. Now you have to remember that as you menstruate every month, a cohort, a group of them are lost every month. So by the time you are 35, there's a large number of eggs you have lost. Now, the ones that remain are as old as 35, are as old as yourself. So when you want to do anything beyond that age, you have to remember this fact that your eggs are as old as yourself. Now, I'm emphasizing this because in recent times we see a lot of ladies coming around in their late 30s or early 40s requesting for egg preservation. We need to remember that at that age, your egg pool and quality may be compromised, largely compromised, because what you have left will largely depend on what you are born with and whether or not they are of good qualities will largely also depend on the kind of life you have lived. So please, let's take note of this. Premature ovarian failure is another situation we see now commonly where women stop menstruating prematurely, especially those who attain menopause at around or before the age of 40. Before now, we see that, or technically, we see that the age at menopause is around 50 years of age. But in these times, we see women's menses ceasing completely before the age of 40. We've seen quite a number of women at 38. We see some at 39, 40, 41, 42 whose menstruation has failed. Now, what this means, once a woman's menses has ceased, and especially it has not come beyond 6 months or 1 year, it means most likely the ovaries have failed. And once the ovaries has failed, it most likely, in most more cases than not, the eggs have completely been depleted in you. At this stage, there's nothing you may be able to do to reverse this situation. So we take note of these realities. Now, what is premature? I want to emphasize more on premature menopause. Um, Periods stopping completely before the age of 40 years, and the implications of this is the fact that the condition is not reversible because, as I said earlier, once menopause sets in, it means that your egg pool is completely exhausted, and man has not been able to devise a drug that will reverse and then create new eggs in the ovaries of a woman whose ovaries or whose eggs are completely exhausted. So it means you will have no more eggs in your ovaries and no more eggs for you to preserve for future use, and you can only get pregnant with donor eggs via IVF, and your babies won't have your genes but your husband's, of course, or your partner's, and then this does not affect your ability to carry pregnancy. However, now please, if we do not remember anything in this presentation, let's remember this slide because women come to the clinic, fertility clinics, prepare to donate or to preserve their eggs, only to be told that, well, the fertility sun has set on them. And then they ask themselves, they usually will commonly see them asking you, how did they get here? And that is because perhaps they didn't have the right information at the right time. So please, let's remember this, even if we don't remember anything in this presentation. Now, the last line says that this does not affect your ability to carry pregnancy. However, now not having eggs, okay, does not affect your capacity to carry pregnancy because where eggs are found is different from where your babies stay when you get pregnant. The only thing you have to remember is that as long as you are ready to accept or you're willing to accept donor eggs, then of course you can carry baby with your spouse's sperm or your husband's sperm. But know that when menopause strikes, or if your ovaries fail prematurely, you can only use someone else's eggs to have children. The other condition that I will quickly go through that I know we probably need to hear again is the fact that in our environment we are exposed to so many things that we're not aware of, which also ultimately affect our health, including what we have talked about earlier: cancers, obesity, thyroid disease. I want people to particularly take note of EDCs. EDCs are endocrine disruption chemicals. They're everywhere, practically everywhere. They're in personal care products. They're everywhere. So please, let's be aware of these substances because everybody in modern times is somehow, in one way or the other, exposed to these things. I would suggest that after this presentation or even beyond, people should take note of these chemicals. Everybody should endeavor to read a little about these things because they are almost always everywhere and they're affecting our health very badly. Now, what are our recommendations? Now, we should remember that from what we've said, the things that generally affect our health are almost everything we're exposed to, So we need to minimize the use of devices, reduce screen time, read books more, learn on the internet. Don't waste your time on entertainment, because once we give cheap dopamine, as they say, it destroys you over time. So anytime you want to go online, ask yourself, am I learning or am I just wasting your time? Or because otherwise, once you get hooked on dopamine, all that you do is to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll while you waste your time instead of learning. Don't forget your biological clock, please. Whatever it is you do, while you pursue education and your career, don't forget that your biological clock is always ticking. I mean, you should not leave what you cannot help or what you cannot do anything about for later time. Otherwise, there's always a regret that comes. You can achieve everything else as long as you do not forget your I mean, as long as you forget your biology, a time will come when you will wonder why you didn't focus on this. Please, let's take note of that. If you want children, please start your journey early. If you want children, I want to repeat it, please start your journey early. Eat well and exercise regularly, especially outdoor. Now, why this outdoor is important is because these days most of us live our lives indoors. There's one very important thing that God has put outdoor that we don't get from foods and or animals and plants, and that is sunlight. The more you expose yourself to sunlight, the more you get this particular nutrient called vitamin D. And if you don't have enough of that, it affects practically every organ system in you. Be aware of what you put on your skin, use organic products if you can. Always remember that science cannot hack biology. Medical science may not help you all the time. In conclusion, modernity has brought in a lot of improvement in human life experience, but there's a price to human health. Man is a biological creature whose well being is strongly tied to nature. The further away man moves from nature, the more likely he suffers health challenges. Age is a very important factor in your biology. So I thank you very much for listening. I don't know if there are uh, questions or clarifications people would want to have on this. Thank you very much for having me. I think I'll give back to
Thank you
Christine.
so much, Dr. Aku.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for taking us through tonight's session. Thank you. If you're still with me, can you give Dr. Yakub a round of applause? Give us a thumbs up in the comments. Let's say thank you to our facilitator. If you have found tonight's session helpful, I noticed Patience Bulus was giving us a signal that she's writing and writing and writing. And I've also been dropping some comments in the chat box, some punchlines from tonight's session. Now, I'd like to thank us all for being here, but the night isn't over yet. We are here because we want to be able to get our questions answered. And this is the perfect time and period for our questions to be answered. Therefore, if you have any questions about tonight's session or generally about any health concerns or any questions that you have, this is the perfect time for you to ask those questions. So please fire away if you have any questions. I can see viewers are telling us thank you. Thank you so much. I can see comments from Fatima Omar, from Mujiba. Thank you so much from Joy, from Emmanuel. Thank you everyone for your comments. From Misu, thank you so much for your comments. Revealing Jesus one, thank you so much for your comments. Thank you for being here. So now we would like to take questions. We would like to take questions for Dr. Yakub. If you have any questions about tonight's session, when doctor mentioned, the fact that our biological clock is always ticking. And I said, wow, that is serious. It's always ticking. And what it means is that if you want to have kids, if you do intend to have children, you need to start early. we are not against you having a fruitful career, but you need to understand that your clock is ticking. And what that means is that at a point, it's going to stop ticking. So we need to, you know, put at the forefront our desire to have children and take care of ourselves and do the necessary things to be able to have what we desire. We also learned tonight that virginity does not guarantee fertility, and that is such a powerful revelation, that virginity does not guarantee fertility. It means that simply because you are a virgin does not mean that your fertility is 100%. Fertility goes beyond virginity. That is what we are learning tonight. We also learned tonight that once menopause sets in, it means your eggs have been exhausted. Now, this is to my women on the on the webinar, the fact that we have been created with a number of eggs that get exhausted once we reach menopause. So it means that if you want to bear your own children with your own genes, then you need to start early. You need to start early. So always remember your biological clock is ticking. All right. So we have a question. Dr. Yakub, can you hear me? Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, I can. I can hear
Okay.
you.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay, sir. Your camera seems to be off.
Okay.
Am I
Sorry.
correct?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, your camera seems to be off. Okay, so the question goes thus. Good evening, doctor. That was a very wonderful presentation. I once read about fibroid occurrence in non-sexually active ladies. How is this possible, and are there preventive measures? Over to you, sir.
Okay. Well, I have mentioned in the slide where we talked about the fact that virginity does not guarantee fertility, and one of the things I mentioned is the occurrence of fibroids, especially in women who are not bearing or getting pregnant. So one thing is, of course, beyond pregnancy or absence of pregnancy, there are hormones that are known to predispose to formation of fibroids. And in particular, these hormones are two. We have this one we call estrogen, that's the main hormone, and then there's the progesterone. Sadly, these two hormones are produced in a woman's reproductive life to maintain your femininity. So as long as you're a woman and you're in your productive age, which is generally considered between 15 and 49 years of age, in those years, your ovaries are actively producing estrogen and progesterone. Now, these estrogens go to your womb to stimulate growth of fibroids if you're not bearing children. And so, even when you have, as long as you develop fibroids and you remove the first set, as long as you do not engage your womb, okay, to bear children, because you have estrogens and progesterone being produced every day, every week, every month from your ovaries, there's a tendency for the fibroids to grow back again because the same reason they grew in the first place, it's still there, which is the presence of ovaries. The only time fibroids may not occur or regrow in a woman is if she had attained menopause after removal of the first set. So please, removing fibroids, okay, in a woman in her reproduction does not guarantee that they won't reoccur because you still have those hormones that can predispose you to fibroids. Now, what are preventive measures? Well, how can we prevent them? Well, largely, it's difficult to say in general terms that we can completely avoid fibroids, but the best thing that is first is to start reproductive life early as much as possible. However, there are other medical measures that can be taken. There are devices that can be placed in the womb of women, okay, to prevent regrowth of fibroids over time. There are certain injections that can also be taken. But we need to remember that most measures that are meant to prevent fibroids from growing also negatively will affect your fertility profile. So while you're doing whatever it is you're doing to prevent fibroids or to even melt or reduce the size of existing ones, remember that what you're actually doing is to stop production of your estrogens or progestogens or progesterone that actually maintain your fertility. So please let's remember that the best way to prevent fibroids is actually childbearing. That's the best way to prevent them. Every other thing you're doing, you're also indirectly interfering with your fertility uh, potentials. I don't know if I was able to answer the question.
All right. Thank you
Thank
so much, Dr. Yakub. Thank you so much for responding to this. So we have another question. Patience is asking, you talked about pelvic infections. What are these infections and do they guarantee fertility? Now, I don't know if she meant fertility or infertility in this case, but I'll read the
you.
question again. You talked about pelvic infections. What are these infections and do they guarantee fertility? That's the question as written.
Okay, yes. The pelvic infections in this case are specifically two of them that we know that may compromise fertility if a woman contracts them. And this, first, we have, I'm sure we've heard about gonorrhea before. Neisseria gonorrhea is the bacteria that causes gonorrhea. And then the second one is chlamydia infection in women. Now, these infections are sexually transmitted. Okay, they are contracted via sexual means, and once a woman contracts them, what they do is that they actually go all the way to the womb and then to the tubes, and they damage the interior of the womb as well as particularly the tubes. So most women who have this infection over time realize that their tubes will be blocked. The sad part of this is the sad thing in this is the fact that most women who have one of them, particularly the chlamydia, are not even aware they have it, you know, because it's a silent and long-standing infection that ultimately blocks the tubes. The one that sometimes when we contract we can get to know is the gonorrhea, because usually that may come with a lot of symptoms that will lead you or make you present in the hospital. But by and large, both of them ultimately can affect the womb or your tubes and therefore may compromise your fertility. So they actually have an impact negatively, or rather they negatively affect your fertility potential by blocking tubes or creating something we call pelvic adhesions, especially in the long term. So I don't know if I've answered the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. All right. So we have someone who's asked a copy of the presentation slides via email. We will discuss this as a team and revert to us. All right. So we have a question. Okay, Manuel says, thank you so much for the detailed response, sir. So I believe his question was answered. All right, we have a question. Here it says, for women who have had their kids, what causes fibroid?
Okay. Oh, this is very interesting because I know I said that, fibroids grow in women who don't have children. Now, the sad part is when a woman has had children early enough and stops having children, as long as she is still in her reproductive life, unfortunately, she may still develop fibroids. So what we see in this case is that, like women who probably started reproductive life in their 20s, and because in these times, in these days, in modern times, people don't want to have more than one, two, three babies at most. Okay, so you find out that between the ages of 25, maybe to 30, for those who start early, they've already completed family life. They want a family size. They want one, two, or at most three. So by 35, a woman who is still in her reproductive life has stopped having children. So between 35 and 49, because she's still in her reproductive age, fibroids still grow because she has stopped having children. So that's the irony of it. So as long as, unlike before, where our mothers in those days would have childbirth from around the age of 18 or 16, 18, or until menopause strength. So you see a woman having children, maybe up to 10, 11, 12, all by herself alone because they just deliver, they keep on having children up until menopause. There, fibroids never really grow. So fibroids was never their problem. But here, where we have children, either we delay in having children, and so while you wait up until your 30s or 40, early 40s, fibroids begin to grow, or you have children early enough, but then stops while you are still in your reproductive age. So thereafter, once you stop childbearing, fibroids also grow. So that's the say. So as long as the womb is fallow, most of the times fibroids will grow. So that's is what happens in women who have had
Mm.
children. If a woman has had children up until late 40s, she's very, 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 very unlikely to develop fibroids. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So once the womb is vacant, there is every possibility that fibroids will present themselves. So
Yeah.
we have a few more minutes. We have a few more minutes. If you have any questions, please let's hear from you. Dr. Yakub is here to give clarity. And so if you need clarity, please ask your questions. In the meantime, while we're still here, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please hit the subscribe button immediately so you don't miss out on other health talks like this that are coming and generally other helpful content that we put out on our channel. If you're here to connect with us online, we're active on Instagram at welllife_foundation. We're active on Facebook at Welllife Foundation. And our website is very active at www.welllifefoundationng.com. So do well to engage with us if you have any concerns. After tonight's webinar, and you'd like to reach out to us, you can reach out to us using any of our social media platforms. So, as we draw the curtains on tonight's session, I would like to appreciate each and every person that has made time to be here tonight. I want to thank you for sharing your evening with us and for coming out to learn more about your health. We do hope that this has been an insightful time, and we are looking forward to having you again and again. All right, we have one more question, even though we have actually done a webinar on these two topics. But Dr. Yakub, would you want to just maybe say one or two lines on endometriosis and PCOS? And then I would refer patients to our previous webinars that are on our page. Thank you, sir.
Okay, sorry. Are there specific questions about endometriosis or they want to know about endometriosis in general and then PCOS? Is there a
Just
specific?
generally, she just says, yeah, she just says, can you please talk a little about endometriosis and PCOS? Patients, I don't know, do you have a specific thing you want to know, or you just want Dr. Yakub to talk about it generally? If you can respond to this, it would be helpful. So maybe we can just give her a minute to give us any specifics if she has any.
Okay, well, maybe what I should do, let me just talk generally about each one of them because each
Okay,
one
sir.
of them is actually a very huge thing to discuss. But maybe let me start with endometriosis. Endometriosis is a condition where the lining of the womb that sheds every month in a woman that shows up as menstrual blood is also present outside of the womb, such that every month the woman is bleeding, she also bleeds into other parts of the body. That is what is considered as endometriosis. So, for instance, I mean, as I'm giving that as an example, I have seen women who have the endometriotic tissue in their lungs. So, anytime they bleed, as in have their menstrual period, they also bleed into the lungs. I've also seen women who have endometriosis of the belly button, and each time they're bleeding in a month, the belly button gets dark and swollen because they're also shedding the endometriotic tissue in the womb. So endometriosis is the presence of that tissue that sheds every month in every other part of the a human body apart from the interior of the womb itself, and it carries a lot of medical and fertility implication. But the most common presentation with endometriosis is severe menstrual cramps. That's the commonest thing that women observe, those who have endometriosis. So for ladies who have severe, very unbearable menstrual cramps, and especially when if it is getting worse as you get older, you may do well to see your doctors to investigate you properly. So polycystic ovarian syndrome (PCOS) is a different condition where, for some reason, there is a hormone imbalance that favors the production of masculine hormone in a lady as against the feminine hormone. And so, because of the excess amount of masculine hormone in the woman, you see the lady developing features of masculinity like acne, hair in her chin, in her chest, around the belly button, and some of them actually develop a lot of hair all over the body. Okay, and sometimes in severe cases, even their voice features are affected. But the other manifestation of polycystic ovarian syndrome is the fact that the lady has irregular menstrual cycles. In fact, some of them hardly menstruate more than 6 times in a year. And so, because of the fact that they have a lot of excess of masculine hormone, the implication to them is the fact that, as I said before, they have excessive hair growth everywhere, acne, and the rest of them. But it also has effect on their fertility potential because it affects the quality of eggs and the rest of them. But that's, in summary, what endometriosis and polycystic ovarian syndrome is. I think we've discussed this before in some of our webinar topics. If I think it will, if the individual goes to our website or YouTube channels, they will see where we discuss some of these things in details. So thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So, patients, if you can hear me, you asked the question on endometriosis and PCOS. You'll be pleased to know that we have actually done health talks on these topics. And if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, the videos are already uploaded there. So just do well to check our channel after tonight's webinar, and you will be able to see the previous webinars and actually watch them to know more on endometriosis and PCOS. All right, it's 8:01 p.m. West African time here in Nigeria, and we will be calling it a night. Yes, we have had a wonderful, wonderful time at our health talk tonight, where we have talked about career first, baby later, and intertwined it with modern lifestyle and your health. I think for me, the takeaway from tonight's session is the fact that virginity does not guarantee fertility. And I'd like each and every one of us to take this as a mental note, especially because of the climb where we find ourselves, so that people are able to understand that virginity does not guarantee that you are fertile. So it means that your fertility is not always tied, or in fact, is not tied to your virginity. I look forward to more conversations like this. I do not know how you feel, but I am super excited that we are having these conversations, because these are very, very critical and life-changing conversations that affect each and every one of us. And even if they do not affect you, they affect your sister or your mother or your uncle or your father. They definitely affect someone in your life. And it pays to be informed beforehand, right? They say prevention is better than cure, and that is what we hope to do with our health talk series at Well Life Foundation. It's been a pleasure having you tonight, Dr. Yakub. Thank you always for showing up for us for our Well Life Health Talks, and we look forward to having you again, sir. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much. As usual, Christian, I appreciate everyone who's there.
Thank you. All right, so to everyone who showed up tonight, I wish I could call your name. Mercy, Michael, BFS, SMS, Patience. We have Mariam, we have Mujiba, we have Olayemi Friday, we have Joyce, we have Hakima, we have Emmanuel, and many others who joined us. We have Joy, Ayuba, Mesu, and all the amazing men and women. Yahaya, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you at the next edition of our Well Life Health Talks. Have a very good night, and God bless.